Now, the message tonight, like I told you, for the group here, it might sound a little weird. But you've got to stop and think about what it says and what it relates to. It's one God told me early on in the week that was the message, and then some things that's happened this week kind of made me understand why that it was so important to do it this week. But the message is called Raising G-Rated Kids. Raising G-Rated Kids. It's crazy. I heard a grandparent say at the University of Virginia Cancer Center several days ago. This grandparent, actually, he was a great-grandparent. He's been raising 2 children. The little girl he got when she was 8 months old and the boy at 2. They're 6 and 8 now. Because his granddaughter decided that she wanted to go over and have fun and put the kids to bed at night and just leave them. And he found out about it and said something to her, and she said, well, if you want to look after them, you get them and take them and look after them. And he grabbed them and he went right straight down to the courthouse and got him an emergency custody order, went to court, and he's had the custody of the kids. And she said, well, if that's the way you feel about it, and he's had them ever since. And there's more and more and more of that happening every day in the country. Grandparents are raising the kids. But this is not just about grandparents. This is about parents. And when we think of things that we do, and some may not even have children, but they can help to look after the children. We got trying to raise G-rated kids in an X-rated world. G-rated kids in an X-rated world. Television, video games, computers, cell phones, just about any other electronic device that you can think of are now babysitters for the parents. Mama can get on the phone and talk because the kids have got an Xbox to play. Or a video game of some sort, or the television, or they get on the computers. I've got grandchildren that are 2 years old know more about computers than I did. I mean, that's what we're living in. It keeps the kids busy. And what's happening to the parents? Well, they got more time to do the things like drugs and partying, or just ignoring the kids and going out and worrying about themselves. And here's a little illustration that I found on the internet. Go to the internet's great. You can find all kinds of really cool stuff. And this is an illustration that shows that just how bad a home can really get. This man was hired to go take a census in the hills of East Tennessee. He came to this one ram-shackled house. He knocked on the door and he was greeted by this young girl. You know, he's got a clipboard and he says, "Is your mom home?" Girl said, "Nah." She ran off with a moonshiner. The man then continued and he said, "Is your father home?" "Nah," she replied. "He pokes his head in once a month to take a bath." Well, guy's getting frustrated. He says, "Do you have an older sister?" "Yep," she replied. "Well, is she home?" "No, she's in jail for shooting the sheriff." "Well, do you have an older brother?" "Yep." The guy said, "Well, then is your older brother home?" "Nah, he's at art the astonished census taker gasped. He says, "Harvard? What's he studying?" The girl said, "Nothing, they're studying him." You know, and somehow that makes sense. When we look at some of the families that we see, they need to be studied to find out what went wrong. Right? You know, we need to find out what went wrong. And the children, 2 children were sitting at the table at the Rock Ridge Christian Academy just up the road here a couple of weeks ago. And one of them said, "I know where my mom is." And the other one says, "Well, how long has she been missing?" He said, "I don't know, a week or so." He says, "Well, where do you think she is?" He said, "Well, I think she did something really bad." The other girl says, "Maybe she's in jail." And the girl whose mother was missing said, "That's it. She's in jail. Okay, I know where she is now." Our kids is getting the impression that as long as I know where mom is, that's okay. That she's in jail. Mom ran off with a moonshine. Huh? At least we know where she is. And we're trying to raise G-rated kids in an X-rated world. And every day it becomes more challenging. The days of Father knows best and leave it to Beaver, they're just gone. Those days are back in the 50s in black and white. We're in color now. And here's the part that I like. Those shows are still marked G that's on today. And they're nowhere near Leave It to Beaver or Father Knows Best. But they're still G-rated. The only trouble is you know what G stands for today? Grown up. Because these kid shows are grown-up shows. And some of them the grown-up should be watching. We had things happen this week in a school. And we blame a gun. That was somebody's child that did that. Somebody's child in China this week. A 32-year-old man went into an elementary school and sliced 24 students. That's what they said, sliced. I don't know what beyond that. China is considering passing a law that you've got to register now to buy a big knife. The parents has got to raise G-rated kids. It's not the knife, it's not the gun, it's the kid. And that person in China and that person in Connecticut was somebody's kid. It wasn't G-rated, they were X-rated. And drugs are destroying the families like crazy. And we're not talking about drugs that we think of as when I was growing up, it was heroin and cocaine and of course I guess they're still around, but that's what I heard about it. Now it's the prescription drugs. That's the biggest abuse thing in this whole United States. Now CNN, I'm giving them credit for this post. It was called Prescription Drugs, Orphan Children in Eastern Kentucky by Stephanie Smith and Nadia Konang, I think is the way that's pronounced. But the article was about Rockcastle County, Kentucky. A little county over this eastern end of Kentucky. 16,000 population. Would you believe that that little county has a drug-related death on an average weekly? 16,000 people. Their neighboring county of Knott, K-N-O-T-T, County, Kentucky, over half of the students in the school system are missing at least one parent due to death or just plain abandonment, and a few of them are on legal removal. Half of the kids in the county are missing at least one parent. We don't even know what that is for Brandishing County, because I couldn't get those statistics. But I just did happen to find this out of Kentucky. And I don't mean to be picking on Kentucky. One young girl came home from school and found her mother motionless in the floor from an oxycodone overdose. One boy found his parent dead, went to live with his grandmother, who got on drugs and ended up overdosing, and is now living with his grandfather in one little county in Kentucky. They're destroying a family. There's so many parents missing in that county in Kentucky that Parents' Day is now changed. They call it Guardians' Day. That's how many parents is missing. And we don't think right now, there's not any children in this sanctuary tonight. But that don't mean we as grandparents or great-grandparents, that don't mean whether we have children or not, that we can't be a guardian to the ones that are missing. That we can't say something, do something, or help. It's not easy. And the ones in here that are grandparents or great-grandparents, they thought they had it all done. I thought I had it done when my kids grow up. Then I ended up remarrying and started all over. I adopted 2 more. And I thought it was all done when they grew up. And now I'm raising 2 grandkids. According to that same report that was on CNN, in the Commonwealth of Kentucky alone, just Kentucky, there are 86,000 children living with somebody other than their biological parents. Just in Kentucky. Washington and New Mexico and Utah, some of those states, there's 5 others that are actually ahead of them in the number of children per capita, the number of drug abuse. You know, I can remember back when I had a kid stay home from school because they were sick, and watched what a speedy recovery they had when the school bus turned around and went down the road. Anybody have that happen? You know, how amazing that the things that you have in the backpack that's supposed to be ready to go to school, at the last minute, the bus is coming up the road and, where's mine? Well, where'd you put it? Well, I don't know. And it's always the very least likely place that you would expect it to be. You finally find it as the bus driver's impatiently patting on the steering wheel, waiting for the child to come out. We as parents, we have learned that. You know, we have learned things like that if you butter a piece of bread and you put jelly on it and your child drops it, that piece of bread will never fall other than jelly ham on the carpet. We have learned that as parents. And we have learned how to somehow manage to get by without fatally correcting the child for that error. But how about some of these family values that are missing? Think back when God took Adam and Eve, brought them together. He did that with a reason. Put Adam and Eve in the garden and he told them, said, all right, here you go. Replenish the earth, multiply. Be fruitful, create a family. That's what he expected Adam and Eve to do. And then he gave Moses this set of commandments, and right in the middle of them, about the fifth one, he threw in a commandment that says to honor your parents. Something that the kids fail to do a lot now. And then it was in Psalms 68, verses 3 to 6, that David, the psalmist, I'm going to read this right from the Bible here for you, verses 3 to 6. And this is David writing this. And this is something that he's saying to the people. He says, but the righteous be glad and rejoice before God, that they may be happy and joyful. He said, sing to God, sing praises to his name. Because we're going to rise in clouds in his name, Lord, and rejoice before him. A father to the fatherless, a defender of the widows, is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lowly in families. He leads forth the prisoners with singing, but the rebellious live in the sun-scorched land. What's David saying? Right here. He says, God's a father to the fatherless, a defender to the widows. He even looks after the people that ain't got anything. So as parents, we can turn to God for that help that we need to take care of the children, take care of the ones around us. And we sit here as adults. We're somebody's child. Our parent might be gone, but we're still somebody's child. We need to look after God's children. There are three things that children need, and they ought not to live without. Your love, your time, and your discipline. Over here in 1 Corinthians, there's 7 verses that talk about love. Set the scene a little bit. This is Paul talking to the Corinthians now. And he's trying to get them to understand how important love is. He says, if you speak in tongues of men and angels, but you have not love, I'm only resounding going or clanging cymbals. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all the mysteries and all the knowledge, and if I have the faith that can move a mountain, but I have not love, I'm nothing. If I give all that I possess to the poor and surrender my body into flames, but I have not love, I gain nothing. These next verses, always read at the wedding or the marriage ceremony. Verse 4, love's patient, love's kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it's not proud, it's not rude, it's not self-seeking, and it's not easily angry. And it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. church has got spiritual gifts. We're all familiar with the spiritual gifts that God gave us when we got saved, right? But Paul's telling the church of Corinthians, if you don't have love, those gifts of the Spirit are no good. And if we don't give our children love, it's no good. And I can attest to it. There have been many times in raising any one of the 7 that I've got, there have been times that it was hard to love. Real hard. But Paul says, love makes our actions and our gifts useful. He's saying if we don't have love, we got nothing. 99% of the parents will stand up here and say, I love my kids. I know one of that 99 that would write that in any letter that you wrote home. And why do I have custody of them if I love my kids? That's not real love. But if you love your kids, you've got them, you're raising them, you're teaching them what God expects them to know and what God expects them to do. And then we must give our children our time. If we don't ever have time to do for the children, if we don't have time, as my grandchild today was trying to learn to crochet, and Granddaddy had to show him how to crochet. I just happen to know a little bit about it from years gone past. But I took time to show him. We have to give them some time. Over in the book of Ephesians, just a couple of verses there. And this is again, Paul's talking again. Paul seems to do a lot of talking in the New Testament. In chapter 5, verses 15 and 16, he says to be careful then how you live, not as an unwise, but as wise, making the most out of every opportunity. Making the best out of every opportunity. What would my grandson say today if I hadn't taken time to show him how to make that crochet loop? It was an opportunity. And that's what we've got to get and seize. Because the days are evil. You know, our time is more precious right now in this X-rated world than it was ever been or ever will be. We need to give our time to the children. When I say children, I figure if they're younger than I am, they're children. We keep our standards high, and we do good whenever we can, but if we look at this wealth that we have, but if we were taking a test, and let's say that we had an ABCD answer, and the question was, which of these can you take to heaven? A was money, B was your house, C was your pets, and D was your children. Which can you take to heaven? Our children. So why ought we not be spending more time with the children so that we can get our children there? And we got children that might be 40 years old. And those children still need answers. They need somebody to help them. Some of these folks, their parents are both gone. They might need a stand-in If we can be guardians for our grandchildren, we can sure be guardians for somebody else. It's our job. That's what God expects us to do. Look after the kids because we can take them to heaven. I know there's a lot of people in this world right now that's got a U-Haul trailer reserved for that hearse to take with them to the cemetery. It's not going to happen. Because the only thing we can take is our kids. And the third thing that we need to do is the children need our discipline. Proverbs 22:6 says to train up a child in the way that he'll go. When he grows up, he'll not turn from it. We get out here and we say, oh, I love a kid, I can't possibly spank him. I can't take away those privileges. But if we withhold the discipline, we don't love our children. Sometimes we got to do stuff that hurts us worse than it does them. I know my grandson thinks I just love to whip him. Grandma, how come Paul's always yelling at me? I said he wasn't yelling, he was just telling you what you were doing wrong. He was trying to help you. Sound like yelling to me. Well, you'd like to have a little credit for doing a little bit more than that. But listen to this verse. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful later on. However, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those that have been trained by it. Hebrews, verse 12, or chapter 12, verse 11. Later on, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Do you think the thing that happened in Tech or the thing that happened in Connecticut or in China or the deal that happened over in the Scandinavian country here, Denmark or somewhere here a while back where they got killed a whole bunch of people, were those kids trained up under verse 6 of Proverbs 22? Was that a parent gone wrong? I mean, we can't do anything without blaming somebody else. I mean, if children does something wrong, it's a parent's fault. They beat me when I was wrong. Of course, back in the old days, we had to come to Jesus meetings at the woodshed. I got frequent flyer miles. We did. We had to pick our own switch. We had a Japanese quince bush right there along the fence by the neighbors. And that poor bush has started to grow back up now and bloom. I mean, we kept it pruned down. But we turned out okay.
Amen to that.
There's none of my brothers and sisters that's been in jail. But all those have had some problems with their children. Wasn't what we taught them. My son got in all kinds of mischief in high school. He even went up to the Learning Center, Natural Bridge, the Juvenile Correction Center. But you know what? That boy learned a whole lot. And he come out a totally different person. He said, I know who God is. And he said, if you hadn't trained me and taught me and supported me and come to see me every week, he said, that's what pulled me through. It's a challenge for us. As parents and guardians, not only do we have a biblical, but we've got a moral responsibility to look after the children. We've got to look after them. They can't look after themselves. Yeah. We live in an X-rated world. And no, I like a long way of getting to know myself for being the perfect parent. I my children, nor the grandchildren. I'll look after them as best God will let me do. The question tonight, are you raising G-rated children? Sometimes it takes grandparents. It takes the grandparents to pick up the slack where the parent missed. I believe that we're living in a time right now that's going to get worse and worse and worse. I believe that if there was a such thing as a speedometer, that every day it picked up speed and gets us closer to the end time. Now, we can blame a lot of things, and sometimes, it's not always the parent's fault. If it were, God would be in some bad trouble. I was sitting on a rock one night in my backyard, and I was praying. I always thought that, going up on the mountain is the greatest place to pray and all. So one day I was up on the mountain, I had my tractor, and I hauled this giant rock, big flat rock, foot thick, 4 foot long. And I set it up in my backyard, and I can go up there and I can sit on that rock, let it go to the top of the mountain, because it's the mountaintop rock. But anyway, I was praying one night, and I says, God, just happened to be one of those nights kids got in trouble. And I said, what have I done wrong? What did I do wrong? I tried to teach the kids. And I heard a voice that I had to look around because I thought somebody else was there. But it said, I don't know. I've got the same problem. We can read in this Bible and see many, many times where God's children have done wrong. And He did His best to get us to do right. We can't beat ourselves up as a failed parent. We can only teach our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. We can teach them to raise children G-rated in an X-rated world. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for the grandparents and, Father, for the parents that are doing for their children. But for the grandparents and the great-grandparents that are picking up the slack. For aunts and uncles that are picking up the slack. And Father God, we realize that we live in an X-rated world. And we understand how hard it is to raise young children. Father God, with your help, with your guidance, we can get it done. We just thank you for being with us, for looking after us. And Father, that you just don't give up on us. Just keep giving us that little bit of encouragement and that little bit of strength that we need to carry on, to raise the children. Father, we just pray that as your Son Jesus loved the little children, Father, we can also love them. Father, we can do for them. And Father, especially with this Christmas season, that we can show our love, that we can give our time, and Father, that we can give our discipline. Father God, we just thank you for the children. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Thank everybody for coming. And